All right, so today I'm joined by Wilhelm von Ehrenheim, quite the name there. He's the co-founder and chief AI officer at QA Tech, where they're actually doing some pretty impressive and interesting work around autonomous AI testing for software teams. Before this, Wilhelm spent 7 years at EQT building their AI platform Motherbrain, and previously also worked at some things regarding AI at Klarna, as far as I've been able
Yeah,
to
exactly.
research.
Yeah.
So Wilhelm, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward. It's going to be great.
So, what's the most exciting thing that you're working on?
I think everything is changing so fast in the software development space at the moment. So I think that is like very exhilarating and very exciting. So coding agents has become so good, like very recently, I would say. We have seen improvements over the last few years, but like the last few months have been tremendous. And that kind of shifts focus to other parts of the software development lifecycle, which is where we were playing, which is also making it a lot of fun to be in this space. And I'm very excited about it.
Gotta be pretty tough to also follow along. You
Yeah,
can't
of course.
you can't just lay back at all
No, it's
because
it's full speed ahead constantly now. It's crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
you need
yeah,
to really kind of have, even if you have full speed ahead, it's hard to keep up with things.
yeah, 100%. Is it, when you're referring to agents and things going pretty fast right now with coding, is that in relation to Clay and all of that, or is it other specific or
We have agents coming in a lot of different places at the moment, which I think this is going to be a very interesting year in regards to that. I think last year was kind of predicted to be the year of the agent, and I think we really saw them starting to take shape and actually kind of be useful in different isolated, very specific areas. I think from the coding side of things, is the primary ones are Cloud Code and Codex and Cursor, that really kind of changed how developers work with producing code. And you see a lot of this in sales as well, with kind of enrichment and improvements and a lot of these things. But I think we will see this more and more. And you have the Anthropic's co-work, for example, coming to be a little bit more to regular people who don't code normally. And we have agentic browsers like Strawberry and Atlas and all of these. So we see it coming up more and more. And I think now what's holding is not only the performance of these systems or the capability of agents that are kind of the limiting factor as much, which we also saw with the Claude bot and everything,
yeah,
because it's also how you kind of function in organizations, and the AI adoption is like lagging behind because it's moving so fast. And
yeah.
I think this year we're gonna have a much more conversations about AI adoptions at companies and how they actually get on the train and move as fast, because the
Yeah.
previous attempts with like failed AI initiatives and things that there was a lot of writing about, that they obviously were a bit misguided, I think, because there is so much value in it. So
Yeah,
it's going to be very
exactly.
interesting to see.
I think it's probably just like, to most organizations, it's a bit daunting. Like, it's, you can see, oh, there definitely there can be so much value in it, but at the same time it's like, but it's also moving so darn fast, and actually knowing
Yeah,
even where to start, and like
yeah,
not feeling like, okay, then I'm gonna implement this, but then in the next 2 months, then it's gonna be a different tool and a different process and all of that. I like, we can even, we're trying to like also be pushing the boundaries and really like within
mm,
our space, but it's just going so fast.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, no,
You
totally.
really,
And so many new tools coming out. It's like a Cambrian explosion of potential
yeah,
startups and
exactly.
tools and things. So it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think it is pretty interesting because if you look at research on AI adoption now, we clearly see like individual contributors, specifically in developers, have like 2 to 10x output. Average kind of gains in organization output is like 10% or something, which is like
Yeah.
ridiculous, right? And so,
Yeah.
and also you see like smaller companies and some of the really big ones are seeing huge gains, whereas like there's this trough in the middle where people are, or companies are kind of struggling a bit more. And I think that's also because like when you're maturing as a company, you have so much more processes and things, and how teams are working together, and more teams need to be involved in decisions, and it's really hard to kind of uh, to adopt and move fast, right? And some of the giants that are very technically kind of leading these things, of course, they're also performing really well in this, but it is definitely going to be a catch up
Yeah.
in the next, and not probably not only this year. It's going to take some time, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Probably like the next decade. How like how do you approach that? Being an AI like company, and that's pretty much what you have to do as well, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's affecting us in a lot of different ways. First of all, of course, it affects the customers that we are selling to, like their maturity and things, and helping them kind of get up to the level where they can actually benefit from our systems, and trust the output and like all of these things. There's a lot of kind of work in that, and there we have some people, some companies that are like super forward leaning and just jump on the train instantly, whereas some are more kind of questioning and needs more hand holding. But then, of course, as since we are developing this, we are also dog fooding like heavily, right? Like, and trying to optimize as much as we can within our different processes. And we also build agents for a lot of different workflows and tooling around the entire kind of development team, and debugging things and helping with reviewing things and making sure stuff is working. And so there's a lot of automation that is happening, which I think is super fun. It's we had this hackathon like a couple of, what was it, like 2-3 weeks ago, where we had the goal to 10x ourselves, and in output, and then a lot of cool stuff came out of that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's sometimes you have to sort of put yourself in that, like you have to pressure yourself to actually do it, because otherwise you're a bit lazy.
Yeah,
And then you can actually get so much out of it, and then like we do it like in a similar way, with like setting goals. We set goals for example, we set a goal for 2026, and once we'd set that, then we were like, okay, so if we were to actually, like, if we had to hit this goal in 4 months instead of 12 months,
yeah,
like what would we have to do? And
yeah.
it's just like it just shifts your entire mindset around it. It's like, okay, well then we can't fuck around.
we,
Then we
we
have to
can't we
just,
can't do what we normally do, right? Like, no, you need to change
exactly.
things. Yeah.
It adds so much more urgency, and I think it's so fun to think in that way. Then like sometimes you're not gonna be able to hit it in that timeline, but you just think, like, it's a really fun exercise.
Yeah.
100%, and I
No,
guess
I
it's
think
what I
I think
would.
it's super valuable. It's so easy to get stuck in your ways, right? And you're so overloaded with things normally, so you don't have time to optimize things. It's like when you're mowing your lawn, right? You kind of either you do it manually every time, or you kind of try to optimize these robots that help you do it,
Yeah,
and you kind of, if you just set a time to do it, like then you can be much more optimal.
yeah, exactly. Or even like when you're doing it, like thinking about, okay, maybe next time I start here, because then the route is
Yeah,
more, optimal. Like even
yeah,
just
exactly.
that way of thinking, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's different. So like, who at QA Tech, right?
hmm
What's the buying profile? Who are you actually, like? What's your
So
ideal customers?
our primary ICPs like mid market and smaller enterprises. We are primarily kind of helping with the testing of applications that you're building in products. So it tends to be either B2B kind of software or B2C kind of marketplaces or things like this. But we've had
where they have to
especially
push a lot of development.
Yeah, exactly. They have a lot of and it kind of affects their revenue quite a bit if their products are not functioning well, right? It kind of does for us all in a way. But it's very important. And when you've matured a bit as a company, you usually realize that you need to put more, like the complexity of having several teams building together. It's more complex to reason about change, and at the same time you have a larger customer base, and it's important to keep that functioning. So usually you have some investments already in QA maybe, or at least thinking about doing it. And that's where we see we can kind of really help customers. So we have some customers that have had 2-week testing cycles where they have been able to reduce that to 2 hours, which is tremendous, right? Yeah. And the same where they kind of can have things being tested more in a more continuous manner, moving more towards like agile development and moving fast, which goes very well hand in hand with current trends in AI development and things. So if you're super fast at coding but you still have 2 weeks of testing afterwards, then it doesn't really matter how fast you're. It's kind of just wait for it.
So like really optimizing the entire workflow, and like that is like crazy, going from 2 weeks to like being able to launch something in 2 hours instead. That's like a world. It just pushes so much. Like we do the same thing. We also like always looking at, okay, every time that it feels like there's a bottleneck or there's something that where we have to wait for it for whatever reason, it just pushes the entire timeline, because everything else relies on that thing. It's just so important. Like if you
it's so important.
cut that one thing down, then it affects the entire rest of the thing.
Yeah, I think it's also like pretty old, factory theories around this, with the theory of constraints, that no system is as fast or faster than its slowest part and things.
Weakest link,
weakest link. And it's the same in the software development and in other processes in companies. If you find where the bottleneck really is, and maybe the bottleneck used to be coding, and that was kind of complex and it took a longer time, but now we're suddenly being much faster there, and it's no longer the bottleneck. Then you need to realize what is it now that is actually hindering you. I know a lot of companies have so much code review now instead. So the more you produce a lot of PRs, and then you have all of this code review, so people are, the new bottleneck is reviewing the code and making sure that it works. And I think you can use AI to help you there as well, both in the review and then of course in the testing.
Is it typically split into like separate teams? So it's like there's one software development team, and then there's like one QA or testing team.
There's been different kind of trends in this that have changed a bit over the years. So it used to be very manual, and then there was a lot of effort to start kind of codifying a lot of these tests into these hard-coded scripted end-to-end tests. And then you could try to get as high coverage on these as possible, and touching all the places in your interface. The problem with those are that they're very static. So if anything changes unexpectedly, like maybe the go-to-market team is adding a new kind of pop-up or something for a new campaign, and then suddenly a few hundred tests break because they're not kind of following along correctly. So it's very hard to maintain and keep it up to date, which then essentially becomes like a new shadow code base that you need to kind of maintain just to make sure that stuff is working. And when a lot of stuff is failing because of stupid things, then you don't really trust it as much. So that there has been a swing back a little bit from that. So now it's typically more like having some of that for sanity checking, but then complementing that with manual testing again, where people are manually clicking in the interface and trying to understand if it works. And then typically either you have it outsourced, which is a nightmare in itself, I would say. And then, or you have people in the teams, so being embedded, that tries to be part of the entire kind of development life cycle and make sure that you think about quality all along. But that's also very kind of it's hard for those like few people to actually keep up with all the changes still. So usually
I
they have a
guess.
lot to do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a testing like or a QA role is not necessarily that easy either, because you sort of have to understand part of the technical, you know, technical
Mm.
development part, but also like the use case or like the like business use case as well. I actually used to, now that you're talking about it, I used to actually have that role at Mercedes when I had
Yeah.
like an internship. Like many years ago, but
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
that was actually literally my job. Was like, they were producing new tools like internal, and then I had
Mm.
to actually go through them and make sure that first off they were working, but also that they were sort of like actually solve the problem that they were
Yeah.
supposed to solve,
Yeah.
because that's also like sometimes linking that together from like between a developer who's like, oftentimes very technical and really
Yeah.
good at
Focusing
that,
on the
but
task. Yeah.
also, what are we actually trying to solve here?
Mm.
What's the actual like use case that it's all about?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
also like an interesting inherent bias in a developer testing their own things. I know a lot of companies have been trying to push testing more and more back on the developers, but which kind of works in some regards. But it's also very hard to think about it from the user perspective as a developer. Normally, you have a specific problem in mind, and you're kind of thinking more about the technological kind of complexities and how you should solve that and make it fast and efficient and things, and then you kind of click through and make sure, oh, it works, but you don't think about all the weird ways that users are going to interact with it, right? So it's really good to have this outside in perspective as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's honestly, I feel like it's like that with everything. Really, it's like it's always good to have another set of eyes, because they're always going to see stuff that you didn't see.
No, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
also very interesting from a product perspective. Usually, you have an idea of how your product should be used, and then you look at
yeah,
sessions with users, and you're like, "Well, you're not supposed to do that. Like, what are you
yeah,
doing?"
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so like it's so cool with software development, and like because you can get that feedback if you want it like
Mm.
so fast compared to like a like car manufacturer like Mercedes. It's literally you have to just trust the process and like literally
Yeah.
build a car, like build an entire manufacturing line like 2 years after the car is actually produced, and then
Yeah,
they have
hardware
to
is
hope,
crazy. Yeah.
shit, like I hope the customers actually like it. Where
Yeah,
like
hardware is
software,
crazy. I
you can,
really respect that. I think it's
yeah,
very, 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 very hard. Yeah, it's cool.
different beast for sure.
Mm,
But it's also, yeah, it just develops so fast with software as well.
totally.
And yeah, because you can get feedback so fast and iterate so fast if you're built for that, I guess.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
what's your, I guess, GTM motion, is the word for it when we're speaking
yeah.
software.
We've been trying different things. I originally we tried more of a PLG motion, which we struggled with a bit, and I think for different kinds of reasons. Both earlier the agents were not as good, so you had to handhold agents a bit more, which made it harder for anybody to just try it out and succeed. Um, and then also we have a bit of a kind of an onboarding phase where we scan the product and build an understanding. So similarly to what you would get if you get a new tool, you've never seen it before, you would click around and familiarize yourself with it. That takes a little bit of time. So we had problems with just like users signing up and then leaving
Yeah,
before it was done, and then we never actually saw anything. So we decided to kind of go and move more towards the sales motion. Currently, we're primarily focusing on sales due to this, because the success, first of all, the clients that we speak to, if you're a slightly larger company, it's typically like more geared towards like sales led anyway. And then it's easier for us to help them get started a little bit with this first initial kind of quirks and things. So that has been much more successful, and we see a lot more happy customers this way. I think there is a PLG motion for us in the not too distant futures, especially because there's so many individual contributors building crazy tooling today with AI, and all of them need verification. I have a friend who's a plastic surgeon who kind of vibe coded his entire booking system and things, and he called me. He's like, "Can I use your guys to test this? You know, because it doesn't always work, and I change something here and then it breaks over here." And of course, if you don't have the engineering background, it's kind of hard to think about all of those engineering best practices because you don't know them. So being part of that and helping and making sure that you can have like well tested good products, even if you don't have a serious engineering background, or if you're using AI agents, so that can kind of then be using our agents to automatically verify their work and things. So I think there's definitely a movement there where we can maybe shift a little bit more towards PLG again. But for now we're primarily focused on sales.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Like, there's definitely, because having vibe coded a bit myself, there's, without the proper background, it's hard to actually test stuff as well, because you don't really.
Yeah.
And if you find something, then you have to like explain exactly what it is, and it's not it's not always like it's quite easy to get to like 90% of something that's done and looks good, and then the last 10 of like small tweaks, that's what takes like 10 hours afterwards.
That's classic in engineering in general. Like you get to the first 90% really fast, but then the last 10% can take you years, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. But that's exactly where we want to kind of fit in as well, I think, because our agents look at things that you don't typically do as a normal kind of user that's not very technical. So like network calls, accessibility, console errors, like all of these things that happen behind the scenes, and in telemetry around like what's actually taking time in your code and things, and can feedback that to the coding agent directly, and then that of course helps it to take the good decisions to fix those things without you having to do all the debugging yourself before writing that as a prompt. It's, I would say that there is so much testing problems in larger organizations that I think this is definitely going to be a focus for us continuously as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I guess it can also just be easier. It's a bit less. It's a bit, I guess, a little bit more structured, or I guess it changes a little more slowly when you're also in that space and not in the end user. Like, we have to actually bring people on board. Yeah, you have a little more time to actually work with bigger organizations in that way. So I think that decision probably makes good sense for now as well.
Yeah, but it's interesting because
actually reach them.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's not always easy to reach them, though. And I think especially now with the growing kind of amount of tools and AI outreach and all of these things, there's a lot of noise. And typically we need to reach engineering managers or CTOs or those kind of profiles that kind of owns the budget and care about reducing the cost and improving the speed in the development lifecycle and all of these things. So and they're typically pretty overloaded already. So it is pretty hard, I would say. We have a lot of different smaller strategies and things. What I think has worked really well for us is going to events and speaking to people, trying to kind of be thought leading a bit online. We do a lot of kind of outreach through social media channels and things, and then we are also doing like old school cold calling and things.
Yes, yeah. It's because it is sort of like that, everything sort of ties together. The clients that we work with that do the best are typically the ones where they also have a decent online presence, like they do
Yeah,
post a little bit on
that makes sense.
LinkedIn, and they have a good online presence. They go to some events. Like when you then start reaching out to people as well, as soon as because they do look you up, like the first thing you'll do, I get an email that I think, this looks a little bit interesting. Let me just check them out. I take the domain and then I look up the website, and if it looks like, what's this, then
Yeah, no, of course.
like I'm not gonna book, I'm not gonna respond. But
Yeah.
if it also looks interesting, then like typically then they'll go into some rabbit hole of actually like researching it or watching one of those podcasts that you've been on,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a YouTube channel, or a video, or even signing up themselves and actually
It like
trying it out.
raises the
That's
trust everywhere a little bit,
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's super important, I think. And then increasingly, it's also becoming important to be present in and produce content to be present in recommendations from AI models and things. So we're trying to push that as well. It feels like it's a very new field still, and everybody's guessing a lot. But yeah, I think we do see changes there as well, and some improvements, which is cool to see, because I think that will grow going forward as well.
Yeah, I'm working with. They're called Outright. It's like a small team, but they're doing really well to like write AI optimized blog posts. So we're pushing out a good amount of blog posts every day, and it's super easy. And you essentially, like, I've just uploaded everything that I know, because I create content and everything that we do. So I just upload that as a knowledge base, and then I create the subjects with a little help from it even sometimes, and then it just runs without me having to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you
Something
need to
like
have a
that
motion
is
like this, because you can't do everything
I'm
like from scratch. It's
exactly
gonna be very hard.
exactly. I'm not gonna sit
We're also
and
using a
write 10
small
blog
firm
posts every
called
day.
yeah, we're using a small firm called Literally that helps us with these blog posts, and kind of be essentially kind of writing about the interesting things that we want to write about, but you don't have time to do everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is no way. Yeah, but it's also like it's sort of also don't want those posts to be completely inaccurate, or like
No, no, of course.
to
You can't just like generate everything with ChatGPT. It's gonna be shit. So you need to have somebody who are
exactly.
actually helping with
You
it.
have to have some QA there as well.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think our bots can do that. They would probably buy the AI slop, but
yeah.
yeah.
You should make one. Make one that
Yeah,
can do
yeah, that would be interesting.
it. Yeah, well, like super interesting. It's definitely working fast, or growing fast. I have this question. It might be a little cheeky, but let's give it a try either way. This podcast is called The Revenue Equation. So, like within your business, what is the revenue equation? Like, what's the thing where you're like, up until now, you've seen every time you put effort in, it gives you the highest like revenue or the highest outcome?
It's such a complicated equation, I think. I mean, what really shows a difference for us is both, of course, being much more structured in the sales process, and making sure that we really successfully onboard customers and make the onboarding easier, and documentation easier, so that it's easier to get going. I think those things definitely play a huge role for us. And then, of course, as the sales machinery is becoming more and more structured and fast moving, then also you need to feed them with leads, right? So thinking more about our online presence and marketing, and being part of. We have done some like newsletter sponsorships and things, which brings in new leads, and then we have the same when we go to events like Tech Arena. We were at Tech Arena last week. It was great. I think that's a simplified version of the equation, and then of course there's a ton of complexity, and when you're running a lot of agents, you need to think a lot about the cost side of things as well, to not just waste all the little revenue that you're gaining, right? So that's definitely an effort for us as well, to make sure that the equation actually is balanced, and that the growth is benefiting us. And yeah.
Yeah, that's the constant struggle of actually making sure you're profitable in what you do as well. It doesn't make sense to bring on a whole lot of clients if the back end is not profitable.
No.
That's not gonna last for long.
I think you need to think about it slightly differently today with all the AI tooling. That I think it's easy to waste money on things, because it's so easy to try different things and just maybe it like makes a little bit better, but does it really? And like, yeah,
exactly. At one point, you have to also just double down on something, and it's very. I do it a lot as well. I'm always testing out some new tool or some new tactic, but at the end of the day, like 80% of our customers come from cold email. So that's also what we just keep doubling down on, because it's, and then all of these small ones, then they sort of add up. And sometimes you do find something like the AI blog posts and like optimizing for that, where we're, getting a client like every month or so, which is, that's a pretty easy way to get a client. But it's also something that is just proving a bit harder to scale as well. And like, you just have to pick. You can't pick 10 channels and put all of your effort into 10 channels. You have to pick like 1 or 2, maybe 3 maximum, depending on how big a company you have, obviously. But like that's then gonna be your channels. That's where you're gonna really get good at those and figure out all of the small things and tweak all of the small things. Because it's like the engineering thing. It's 90% of it is really easy. And that's the 90% that everyone else does as well. But the last 10%, that's the stuff where it takes, months or years to actually crack. Like I talked to the founder of one of the biggest agencies out there the other day, and he was like, we always give any channel 6 months minimum, or not even any channel, any new industry that we try to target, 6 months minimum. Because it takes 6 months to actually iterate, learn, and actually like get to a point where you're those like 5 to 10% better than everyone else. Because then you're the one that everyone's replying to.
Yeah.
Instead of the one that you're getting in once in a while. So it's we're like, that sort of changed my mindset as well. And damn, you're right. You have to just double down on something and then believe in it and like keep going.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant. It's very similar to product development. You need to. It's not only about like what is interesting to do or build. It's also, it is a huge part of it is like understanding what not to do and what to focus on, right? So
exactly. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with a product that does a lot of small things, but
exactly, but doesn't really solve a problem. Exactly.
Cool. Wilhelm, thanks a lot for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure.
Super nice.
Where, if people wanted to follow along on what you guys are building, what would be the best place for them to follow?
I mean, first of all, we have our web page is super easy. It's qa.tech, so that's a good place to start. But then otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn and follow me. I think I'm posting a lot about what we're doing and things. So that's a good channel.
Cool. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you. It was great.